So we are recording tonight's industry hour, and we always do this because it's always nice to have this as a resource to use as everyone's trying to figure out, what major they want to declare or, how they can connect their education to their future career as an environmental engineer. But it's especially important tonight because we know that there is actually a class conflict with environmental engineers, first year taking a CAD course right now, and also it's a really heavy exam week. So we know there's many students who are interested in this panel, and we will email this out to everyone. Well, we'll email out the playlist link tomorrow, and then the video will be uploaded on YouTube on Monday. Okay, so I'm going to begin by passing over the reins to the wonderful Kristen Kettering, who is our representative from CCPD, who will be doing her presentation on the hiring statistics of environmental engineering. And then Karen will take over for the formal environmental engineering industry hour panel. Okay, Kristen, it's all yours.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so my name is Kristen Kettering, and I am a career counselor at the CCPD. And I'll just go ahead and pull up my little screen, my PowerPoint here. It'll just take a second. Bear with me. All right, so hopefully you can all see that. Again, my name is Kristen Kettering. I'm a career counselor at the CCPD, and I'm just going to show a handful of slides on important things to know about environmental engineering regarding to career purposes. So the first thing I want to mention is just our office, where it's located, and some of the resources that the CCPD can offer to students. So first of all, our location is DCC building. So it's DCC 209, Suite 209. We're under the Starbucks Cafe. So if you know where the Starbucks Cafe is, we're just right on the floor, right underneath that. So just head down the stairs and you'll find the CCPD. You can make appointments with us through Handshake. So you just log into Handshake, click on Career Center, and then click on Appointments. You have a choice of appointment type. So you can either still choose your virtual through WebEx appointment if that makes you more comfortable or if that's more convenient for you. You can also have an in-person option. So you can come right to our office or an email consult appointment. So you get to choose. The services that we offer is just basically anything and everything career related. So this is just a sampling of some major things that we help with. So resumes and cover letters, searching for internships and full-time positions. We help with interview prep. We can do full-blown mock interviews if you're interested, or just help you prep for an interview. The whole graduate school process, that includes searching and the actual application materials we can help you with. Any type of employer correspondence that you need help with, emails, reaching out, finding their contact information, and especially LinkedIn. So the social media site LinkedIn, we can help you navigate that site as well. We help students with salary negotiation, giving you suggestions on how to go about that and how to actually do that. And also your job offers that you get for both internships and full-time positions. A lot of times students have questions about that. So we can help you through those, as well as career exploration. So if you're unsure what you'd like to do with your particular major, or if you're even unsure of what major you should choose, we have some resources to help you through that. Okay, so let's just talk a little bit about environmental engineering and the types of skills that employers like to see on a resume, whether it be in an actual skills section or it's kind of sprinkled throughout your resume. So CAD software is definitely one of them. Your knowledge and experience with chemistry, physics, biology, any experience with soil science and mathematics. Civil engineering and environmental engineering go very well together. So, any civil engineering courses or concepts, skills, experience that you have is going to be great on an environmental engineering resume. Any type of environmental compliance. So, whether it's in, a co-op or an internship that you've had in the past or that you'll have in the future. Anytime that you can show that you've, followed this compliance, conforming to environmental laws, regulations, standards, and other requirements, such as site permits to operate. OSHA. So some students have certification through OSHA, and that's a great thing to have on your resume, but any experience you have with this is very good. Systems analysis skills and data analysis skills is also important for environmental engineering. And these down here are, important for all areas of engineering. So your problem solving skills, your ability to collaborate well with others within projects or any kind of project management skills that you can show, your communication skills, especially any advanced writing and reading skills, especially with environmental, you'll be reading a lot of different things throughout that career. So different charts and just reports and things like that. So all of these skills are very important to show on a resume. And let's talk a little bit about some salary statistics. So the salary statistics that we have right now, the most updated ones, are for the graduating class of 2020 for RPI students. So with environmental engineering, the range in salaries that were, expressed to us or told to us, and again, these are entry-level bachelor degree positions, was between $56,000 and $68,000. That was the range for graduating bachelor degree students with entry-level positions. So the average is 62,000. Wanted to tell you about this great site here, bls.gov. It's the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Once you get on this site, you can just look for the Occupational Outlook Handbook. Once you're on there, you'll find not only salary statistics, but you'll find a really great summary of all the different areas of any occupation you can think of, but engineering, they have literally every area of engineering you can think of. You can see what their daily, a daily, job looks like for that particular area of engineering. What kind of environments do they work in? What is the job growth potential for that particular area of engineering? And what is the salary? So these are updated yearly. So the 2020 median salary is 92,000 and change. And again, this is for all levels of environmental engineering. So, people that have been working for years, this is just the median salary that was reported. Okay. I wanted to show you on our website. So the CCPD has a page on the RPI website, just ccpd.rpi.edu. Once you get on there, you click on students and then you click on hiring statistics, and this will be the page you see. So what I mentioned to you in the slide before about RPI class 2020, you can find it yourself right here in this annual report. Just wanted to mention that to students as well as show you, it got cut off a little bit on my screenshot, but you can see the list of past co-op employers. So employers or companies that have hired students, RPI students, listed per major. So you can get on there and take a look at that. And for those of you that don't know this, and that's okay, a co-op is just a longer internship. So an internship is a 2 to 4 month experience, typically within a semester. A co-op is a semester and a summer paired together. It's typically 6 to 9 months. So this includes internships and co-op employers, and then lists of past graduate professional schools for each major, and then it got cut off, but lists of past full-time employers for all the different schools split up by major. So this is a great page to check out on our website. And just wanted to show you a couple of examples here. So here's some companies. This is just a small example of companies that hire RPI students for internships and co-ops. And you can see right here just a quick sampling, and then a quick sampling of full-time employers for environmental engineering. So it's all different types of companies, large and small, specified, some government stuff, city departments, bunch of engineering firms. So it's just a nice mix of things. So I'm going to stop sharing. and just wanted to share that information with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. Sorry, every time I have such trouble clicking on the mute button.
That's okay.
Or I guess the unmute. Um, so how did the career fair go last week?
Yeah, well, it was a little confusing because there were two career fairs going on at the same time.
Oh,
Our
jeez.
office, I know, our office was heading the athletic career fair that happened on Thursday evening. We were helping with that, um, and we were helping the athletics department with, getting those employers. That went very, very, very well. We were just getting feedback from the NSBE Shep today, so I can't tell you definitely how that went. But that was over 3 days this week. So, but we're hearing, we've had a lot of students contact us that they're already have gotten interviews from the career
Okay.
fair. So they're already looking to prep for interviews, which is great.
That is awesome. And actually, I would love it if you could spend just a couple seconds telling us, we know you did a ton of stuff for career fair prep. What happens career fair, you give them the information and they contact you for an interview. What does that look like?
Yeah, so typically they'll contact students through their email or through like a phone number that the student has provided, but typically it's through email. Sometimes it's through handshake messages. So, we tell students always check those messages on handshake. Um, and what you want to do is try to get back to the employer as soon as you can, and then start prepping and planning. So contact our office, see what kind of resources are out there as far as how to, plan for how to prepare for interviews. And we have lots of resources not only on our website, but also definitely make an appointment with us through Handshake, and we can go through the whole interview process with you and help you out.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kristen. And really good information because I actually didn't know there was messaging through Handshake, but of course there is. That makes so much sense.
Yes, yes, there's messaging through Handshake, and employers will message students. So we try to get that, out there to students. Please check your messages. You don't want to miss that employer message.
Yeah, I'll definitely help you guys spread the word. That's really, really cool.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kristen.
Thank
So now
you.
we will
Goodness, have a good
transition
night.
over to Karen Lewis, who is going to begin the panel. She will start with quick introductions for our panelists, and then, of course, we will head into that meaty interview, as I keep saying every week, and probably should come up with a new description for. Anyway, Karen, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Kristen. If my panelists can turn on their cameras, we're going to stay on until the end of my Q&A panel. And basically, we're going to begin. I want to thank you guys all for coming tonight or hanging out with me this evening. What we'll do in the beginning is start by introducing yourselves to our engineering students watching. Uh, if you could start with your name and where you work, where you're from and where you live now, and also the degree that you obtained and where you went to school. And in the instance of our student, obviously, we will talk a little bit more about you in the details too. So if you want to begin, Roy, that would be great. You're on mute.
All right, I didn't unmute. Okay, Roy Richardson. I'm a senior managing engineer at Barton & Judas in the Albany office here, just 15 minutes at the most from RPI. From Uxbridge, Mass. Originally, came to RPI, ended up getting a job right down the street after graduation, and after 16 years, moved over to Barton & Judas. And I'm an environmental engineer by degree and by experience from what I do. Is that everything you
Great,
wanted, right?
that's perfect. Thank you. And AJ?
I'm AJ Brooks. I work at Arcadis. I've been there for just about 10 years now. I'm originally from a small town in little bit farther north in New York, between Saratoga and Lake George. I live in the next town over, so still in the same general area. It's beautiful up here. So if you get some time out of school to travel up north a little bit, I definitely recommend going up to Lake George area. And I went to RPI, was a freshman in 2005, graduated with my master's in 2010.
Thank you.
I'll go ahead and introduce myself. Hello everybody, I'm Karina Sandoval. I am a senior environmental engineering major, so I'm currently taking classes at RPI. I did intern this past summer at Jacobs Engineering as an environmental intern. And I'm originally from California, so I'm from the other side of the coast. So that's where I had my internship, West Coast.
Excellent, thank you, and welcome everybody. I guess we'll get started with the big question that a lot of undeclared engineers are entertaining right now, with what made you decide you wanted to become an environmental engineer? And again, we'll begin with Roy.
I'll actually unmute this time. You know, I originally, one of the reasons I chose RPI was because they have a straight environmental engineering option, not just civil or chemical with environmental. I originally wanted to go to be an environmental attorney, and this was the first step. Came out and said, you know, I've had enough schooling, I need to take a break, and then I'll come back, and I never came back. I got out. I love what I do. To this day, I've stayed, and I really enjoy it. And that's kind of what led me down the RPI path.
And Karina, what made you decide to major in environmental engineering?
Well, I guess what initially made me decide environmental engineering. First, I decided engineering after I didn't know my parents were engineers until middle school, and I started taking some middle school engineering pathway classes. So I love the math and the science. And then I was fortunate to have a civil engineering class in high school where we went through all of the, like we went through architecture, they went through the environmental section, and that's when I started realizing I really liked this. And after taking environmental science, I very much enjoyed it. And I realized I really don't like the structural part of civil. So that's why I was nodding my head when Roy was like, yeah, RPI does specifically environmental. That's what I chose RPI since there was no combination, like concentration in environmental. It was strictly environmental, and that's what drew me to RPI.
Great, thank you. And AJ, can you tell us about your path to determining what you decided to major in?
Sure. So in high school, I was torn between architecture and engineering. But I did a lot of environmental sciences in high school. That's something that I really enjoyed, and that led me to environmental engineering. And like Roy and Karina, the fact that RPI had a dedicated path for environmental engineering was a big plus for me. So I was declared as I entered to RPI that I was doing environmental engineering, and my pathway was a little bit different. After my freshman year, I decided I wanted to actually do a dual major with civil engineering. So I ended up graduating with a dual bachelor's in environmental and civil engineering. For civil engineering, I focused more on the geotech side with environmental focus as well. But I ended up getting my master's degree in environmental engineering, and I've been doing environmental engineering, water resources engineering ever since.
Awesome, thank you. And just for inquiring students, we do offer a dual in civil and environmental. It's more of a choose your adventure kind of major where we customize the path based off of your experiences and what you've come to the Institute with. So if there is any questions about the dual, you're more than welcome to get in touch with me because I can assist with that process. But continuing on, I wanted to talk to Roy and AJ regarding just what the day-to-day function of your job is and what the industry looks like in general. Roy, if you'd like to start, that would be great.
I don't know if I can honestly say I do what I do every day because it changes. The fun part of this job is you come in at times and it's just what you planned, and you come in at times and You get a phone call saying, hey, we have a problem, we need help, and next thing you know, you're totally not doing what you expected. So it's exciting because the days change. Primarily, what I generally do is to work with clients to address their needs. So we come in at the beginning, they call us up, say, hey, we got a problem, we have an issue here. So we will work with them. We'll try to identify it, identify options that we can go down. We go through preparing reports so they can go after funding for it and then go after regulatory approvals to do it. Then we will come back and do the design and actually design it, get it out to bid, and then we oversee the construction of it. That's generally what I do for the most part. I primarily specialize in conveyance projects, so I do a lot of pumps, pipes, tanks, a lot of trenchless technologies that I've been getting into, and so it's kind of fascinating, and it actually overlaps a lot with the civil end, as you were mentioning. They do offer the other program. It overlaps a lot, and it's really, yeah, it's kind of exciting. I mean, that's my general day. It's pretty much goes like that.
I love that. And AJ, can you give us some perspective on your day?
It's very similar to Roy's. I'm a product manager, so I am responsible for projects to clients. I also do a lot of client development and proposal writing as well. But with project management, I work with different engineering teams, multidisciplinary teams, to develop a set of documents for the client, whether it be an engineering report or construction documents that go out to bid, and then I continue as project manager right through construction oversight. So it's very exciting. As Roy mentioned, I work on a wide variety of projects from conveyance, stormwater, water, wastewater conveyance to we're going to be kicking off a huge biosolids project right soon, a local project where we are treating wastewater sludge and going through the process of that to water treatment. So I get to work on a wide variety of projects, and it's very exciting.
Awesome. Thank you. Now, Karina, you mentioned you had an internship that you participated in. Can you tell me a little bit about what you did as an intern? Because, our students are only first year at this point, but everybody is very internship oriented at this point, definitely going to be seeking those out. So can you give us some perspective on what you did as an intern?
Yeah, I actually I've had two internships so far. One in public agency, working at a water district, and then this most recent one was in a consulting firm for Jacobs. So it's two different realms that I was able to experience. One was again public agency, so water district helped with appraisal writing, helped a lot with just checking as builds, making sure there's no conflicts, especially we were working with recycled water and all the pipes and making sure that there was no conflicts with any projects, especially street projects. Um, we worked a lot with GIS, so that was fun. I was able to help with the modeling components of the. So that was like a lot of my experience. That was more office work. I was there doing what I was assigned. And then for this past internship with Jacobs, that's when I started getting more of the hands-on experience of going out into the field. So that was interesting. It was interesting not to have the office perspective and then be able to go out and do sampling. I did soil vapor sampling, groundwater sampling, as well as helping some of the installs. So I got HAZWOPER trained to make sure I was safe out there and making sure I knew how to work around these materials, potentially hazardous materials, if they were present. Um, so that was a lot of experience that I got being able to go out to the field. One day I would show up to work, I would get an email saying, we need you to go out to this site tomorrow and this day. Are you available? And then sometimes it'd be slow, and some days I would not expect what I was gonna do. Some days I'd be sent out, some days I'm like, okay, time to reach out for work. And I worked a lot with like lab samples and got a lot of experience with hazardous waste or wastewater treatment, things like that. So that was a fun past year. past summer.
That sounds amazing, I have to say. Now, speaking of internships, Roy, in the meet and greet, I mentioned students were expressing concerns about securing a job or an internship in environmental engineering upon graduation. Can you give us your perspective about the current job market for new grads and also students looking for internships?
Sure. I guess when I talked about my day to day, I probably should have mentioned that in addition to the project side, I do staff management at this point in my career. I've been doing this almost 20 years now, so I've made it to that point. Um, what I'm seeing right now is the market is, and I was blown away in our recent meeting when someone mentioned that students had this perception that the market was bad. Right now, we cannot find enough staff. And I see AJ nodding in agreement here. Right now, the market is hot. There's a lot of need for engineers in the environmental end, also the civil end. In addition, it's going to get worse. The stimulus packages you hear about on the news all the time about Congress is looking at stimulus plans and all that stuff. What happens when you get stimulus is the money comes back very heavy into the civil and environmental fields. So communities have additional money to replace water mains, to upgrade the sewers, to stop the infiltration coming into their sewers. They have additional money to fix their treatment processes that they've been needing to do but haven't had the money to do. So with this surge that we've already seen, and a lot of our clients have already started using COVID money that was given to them by the government to start doing water and wastewater infrastructure because they're allowed to. So the market's booming. Supply is hard for materials right now, but I do not see a shortage any day soon. To be honest with you, I see this going on for many years. I kind of like to tell you that you start a project and 3 months later it's done, but the reality is we start a project and years later it's done. It takes time to go through the permitting process, the funding process, and it takes staff to bring a project from start to finish. So for the foreseeable future, it's going to be a booming market in the civil and environmental end, to be honest. I know we're here to talk environmental, but I'm not going to lie about our coworkers. Civil is hot too right now. So I would not be worried about jobs. What I would be worried about for students is not waiting. The other thing that we're seeing right now is in the past, and I think there's might be a misperception with some career centers at different schools. They've always said you start interviewing in the fall. The first candidates come off for new grads get hired in January. Interns start getting interviews in January. Now the reality is most companies will have their interns and their new hires by the end of October. So when the career fair gets going, you need to be hitting the ground running, and you can't be putzing and waiting to the last minute to be prepared because the market is so hot that you don't want to be starting to think about internships or new hires later in the fall because you'll be on the outside looking in, and a lot of your students, your peers, will already have jobs at that point. The other thing that I'm seeing in the market right now is internship is vital. We get a lot of, in the past, we get people that would come out graduating and not have any internships, and it's tough. The people that get the jobs first are the ones that have experience. We like to see that you've been out there, you've got not only the job experience but the real world experience. We like to see that. It shows initiative. It shows that you have some more experience than just what you learned in school, and it's vital. Those people honestly will be the first ones off the board. And AJ, I'd be willing to guess your company is probably the same way. I mean, the first ones off the board have experience. So getting out there early is vital. Don't wait and say, well, I'm only a sophomore. I'll wait for an internship. That was a misperception when I was at school. We have sophomore interns every year. We have junior interns, and we have senior interns that are going to grad school that will take the summer between and try to get internships. So whatever your level, it doesn't hurt to try because companies are investing more in interns now than they used to, recognizing how hard the market is. They're trying to develop people that will come in, get the experience, and say, I like this company, I want to stay. And if it's a mutual affection, then we hire them as new grads. So don't wait to get an internship. Don't say I'm only a freshman. Don't say I'm only a sophomore. get out there because the market's that hot, to be honest with you. Did I miss anything, AJ, or is that pretty much what you were thinking?
That's pretty much what I was thinking as well. And just to reiterate, we have internships at Arcadis, and we typically, like Roy, we will, if we like the individual, we usually hire them, and our hire rate's pretty high with those that get internships with us.
Thanks, guys. That's amazing. And just so students know, because like I said, a lot of the audience for this program are freshmen. We just had the career fair over the past weekend, and we do have another career fair in February. But at any point in time, it's not too late to, get your resume critiqued and get the ball rolling with actually pursuing those opportunities. And that was an amazing pep talk. And I think that a lot of students need to hear it because the pandemic has been such a strain on so many different avenues, and academics is one of them, and the students are unsure of future. So thank you both. Moving forward, I think I want to talk a little bit about your undergrad experience. Obviously, internships, we're stressed that it's important, and Karina weighed in that she's done 2 already, which is amazing. Applause to you. But what other things do you recommend, and can you make recommendations of clubs or organizations to pursue as well? Because I think the overall balance of a student is important, and that's something that we stress in the hub, that yes, academics are really important, but having a life outside of the classroom is also, it shows that you're human and that you can interact with others. So can you give me your perspectives on that? Whoever would like to start is fine.
I'll start. So besides the internship I had, I was part of a couple of different professional organizations. I joined ASCE pretty early. So I know RPI's chapter of ASCE is pretty active. So that's American Society of Civil Engineers. As we've talked, civil and environmental engineering is very close together. Environmental is actually, in some cases, a discipline within civil engineering. It's water resources is primarily what I do and what Roy does. It's a combination of the two, and there's a lot of overlap. So that is a really good organization to belong to. For water resources as well, NIWEA, New York State Water Environment Association, which is a state chapter of WEF, is another good program. I know in the past, the NIWEA chapter at RPI has not been great success. I know that's something that I tried to push when I was at RPI. I was the president for a little bit, but it was very hard to get students involved. But NIWEA organization is a really good organization for students to get involved with. And I was also involved with the AWWA as a student, which is American Water Works Association. Again, that there's really not a chapter there, but I did join. Not as active in that one as I am in. Those are 3 good organizations, and it's good to be involved in those organizations because that gives you access to professionals, and you can start getting exposure to them early on.
AJ,
Great,
if I
thank
can
you.
just play off that for a minute. I know there used to be a combined AWWA NIWEA joint at RPI, and one thing NIWEA does, which you should take advantage of, is they have an annual conference, and the conference is normally in New York City, I believe. I normally go to AWWA in Saratoga, but they do the same thing. They do student sponsorships. They want to encourage students to come to these conferences, learn what the industry's doing, see what's out there, and they normally give free or almost free costs to go. So normally my company pays for me to go. I believe AJ, is it free or is it low cost? It's pretty reasonable, I believe, something for them to go, right?
Yeah, uh, NIWEA, if there's a student chapter, they usually try to cover the cost of conference. So the meeting down in New York City is a really good experience to go to. There's a whole student panel where you can get present on research or other projects that you're working on as well. So it's a really good experience, and again, you get a really good exposure to professionals and companies that are looking to hire.
No, I agree. That's outstanding. Good, and I agree with everything he said. Those are the ones I think are the big ones. Um, while I'm talking, I guess I'll go on to my undergrad. So I went through to my junior year, and for various reasons, I had no experience besides academic. My summers were spent with the military, so I had zero experience. I got to my junior year and said, "Uh-oh." So I went on a year co-op because the environmental curriculum has a lot of courses that are one semester only. So I couldn't easily take a semester in a summer and then come back, because if I came back the next semester, they'd be like, "Hey, you can't take this course because you don't have the prerequisite because you missed the prerequisite last." So I took a whole year out. Went to work for GE in the EHS department. Really enjoyed it. I stayed on part time my senior year as a student. I did a part-time internship about 10 hours a week with the local GE in Waterford. It's now Momentive. So it was a good experience. One of the benefits to local internships is that sometimes you can stay on during the school year and get some additional money, get some experience, add to your credentials. And that's what happened to me. And so that was a good experience. One thing when you talk about clubs and everything, and AJ's dead on. I mean, those organizations are vital. But the other thing to remember is don't be afraid to be yourself. If you enjoy outdoors, be an outdoors club person. If you enjoy different things, do it. My first job interview, when I came out of college, I worked for one of the big engineering firms in consulting, and the person that hired me, he always joked over the years I was there. He always used to say, I'll never forget your resume. He goes, I looked at your resume, and the first thing I said was, who the heck does ballroom dancing? And he always to this day will remember that I did ballroom dancing at RPI. And so it's not bad to show that you're more than just a student. You're more than just academics. You're more than just what you did in your internship. We want to know about you. We want to know your leadership experiences in clubs and everything. We want to know just what you enjoy. I mean, don't be afraid to say, I love this. I'm a bug collector. I'm a whatever. I mean, those are things that make you stick out and make us know who you are, and not just a clone of what the CDC tells you that we're looking for. And I always laugh because when I got my last promotion, Rick reached out to me, and he said, I never thought a ballroom dancer would go that far. And so it's always been a joke, but it's serious. I mean, my resume stood out because it was different. I had a different experience than most students. So I encourage you, whatever you do, it doesn't always have to be about the job or the professional. Be you, whatever club excites you, RPI ambulance, there's some ecological groups, there's, fraternities, whatever is your thing, do it and be proud of it. That'd be my advice.
Thank you. And Karina, can you give us some perspective on your undergrad experience?
Yeah. I think to add on to it, since I've been to a couple ASCE meetings, and I've also been starting to get more active in Chi Epsilon, which is for you get inducted to this to the society based on your GPA and how well you've done throughout your junior year, get inducted this year. But they do a lot of mentoring for up underclassmen, and they're starting to become more active in the whole department. So I'm excited for that. Be able to connect with just other environmentals and civil. It's really nice since I know for environmental engineering we're pretty small. So now that I'm getting into more to my concentration, I'm starting to connect with a lot more of my peers. So that makes the hugest difference. Being able to ask for help and work on assignments and being able to relate on coursework and things like that. And another thing that I want to highlight too is just joining other societies, not specifically for civil or environmental, but there's also identity-based ones. I'm very active in the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. There's also other societies similar, like NESB, the National Society of Black Engineers, SACE, Society of Asian Scientists and Engineers. They have a lot of professional societies that full benefit. Yeah, I know me personally, going to a lot of to a lot of events, you get to in contact with a lot of recruiters. I know there's a national career fair that our society hosts, and that's where I've got my previous internship. Being able to connect, being able to network with a lot of different, not even like upperclassmen, but also those who are in industry, ask for advice and get those mentors as well. So I think it's a really good experience to get involved in those societies as well, and also have fun too. A lot of these societies are not only professional, but also they help with academics, social life, and things like that. So it's all encompassing. Um, and then I do agree, having a lot of clubs that are social do help. We have a lot of interesting ones at RPI, like Humans versus Zombies. There's Food Recovery Network. Um, there's so many clubs on campus. Like, find one. And it's a good stress relief, especially, we're students, we do a lot of work. RPI is a hard school, and just having that avenue to have fun is much needed.
Thank you. And, aside from the clubs, engineers are so in the mode of being an engineer that they often ask me, as their advisor, what classes they should choose to enhance their engineering, marketability, if you will. And RPI students are given humanities electives, obviously, and also free electives. Do you have any recommendations of courses or areas of focus that would be beneficial to an environmental engineer? Do you want to start, Roy?
Sure. I think the one thing that you heard from AJ and I, we're environmental engineers, but we cross a lot into civil. And even if you don't cross into the civil end, you're going to deal with a lot of civil engineers in this field. So my recommendation is you take some of the civil courses. When you get free electives, go ahead and take some civil course like geotech. Go ahead and take a transportation course. And there's two reasons. One is it's going to help you to understand when you work with these people, understand, what they're talking about, understand, where they're coming from and things. And two, if you're going to be a consultant, you're going to need your PE. And when you take your PE, you're going to have two main options for environmentals. One is to take the environmental, which is very heavy on environmental remediation, atmospheric, a lot of chemistry. And the other option that some of us have taken is the civil water resources. If you take the civil water resources like I did, the morning session is all general civil, and then the afternoon is your water resources. So to pass the general civil, you have to know the basics of structural, the basics of geotech, the basics of water, wastewater, the basics of construction, the basics of what I missed, transportation or whatever. So if you've taken the courses, when you go to study and prepare, you're not sitting there going, "What's a roadway curve?" You're sitting there knowing the basics of it. It's a lot easier for you to prep. So my advice would be to take some free electives in the civil end.
Great, thank you. AJ, can you weigh in on this for us?
I agree with Roy, and that's part of the reason why I ended up going with that dual civil environmental degree. But also get exposure to any CAD-based software that you can. Um, I don't know if RPI is offering Civil 3D or Autodesk. Get training in that. That is a wonderful program. A lot of um, entry-level hires that if you have that program, have skills with AutoCAD or specifically AutoCAD Civil 3D, that could make or break whether you hire someone. So get experience with that. GIS is another one. The GIS is a little bit easier to learn than AutoCAD Civil 3D, but still, if you have experience in those with those software, it will go a long way in getting a job.
Great. And Karina, can you give us some perspective on what you've chosen for your electives?
I think definitely taking a GIS class. I know they offered one this past year. I wasn't able to take it because of didn't fit into my schedule, but I definitely would have if it fit. They have a CAD class. They tailored the intro to like the environmental CAD class, so you do learn CAD. Um, and I've based on suggestions on some of my coworkers this past internship, it was a lot of maybe taking earth science electives, since a lot of them do have lab where you go out and do sampling, and just having that experience. Like I'm personally interested in taking some earth science classes that are lab based to be able to go out and do some sampling, get that experience. As well as for the HOS requirement, sustainability studies works very well, like aligns pretty well in terms of coursework and be able to fit the credits. And I think it just helps you develop as uh, a much better, I guess, engineer, being able to realize the human component of what we do, since a lot of the work we do impacts um, society, impacts people, and be able to learn about how exactly our work impacts. Because we get the engineering mind, we're like, okay, solving the problem, but we need to also consider the human aspects of things. So taking sustainability courses helps a lot.
Great, thank you. Now, sustainability is a HOS requires pathways now, which are 3 courses of related material, and sustainability happens to be one of those pathways, and it's quite popular among the environmental and civil students. And another thing I just wanted to mention, the Civil and Environmental Department actually came up with a water resource management course that they're rolling out this spring. It's a requirement for both environmental and civil engineers. So, to you and to Roy and AJ, I think the demand was clear. So we're making it happen on our academic side. Now, we already talked about the need for a professional license. How do you feel about advancing education beyond the bachelor's with like a master's or a PhD? Could you give me your perspectives on that?
I've done okay with just the bachelor's. I mean, I'm not going to downplay a master's. The master's adds some value, and I know AJ has his master's. Um, but there are 2 points I'd like to make on that one. One is there's a lot of companies that will pay for your master's, and they will give you money towards your master's, if not 100%, like a 75, or I mean, a lot of companies will pay you going back to get a master's in engineering part-time. So if you're worried about money, you can do it that way. The other thing is I wouldn't lose sleep over not having one. I've been doing this for almost 20 years. At one point, I was the senior ranked engineer in Kuwait on a deployment, and it was funny because, I was actually the highest credentialed person too as a bachelor's with a PE. I've done okay. I retired out of the military doing engineering for them. I am a senior manager at this point in my career after 20 years. My next step is a stockholder in the company, and I haven't been held back by not having the masters. So is it something that adds value? If you really feel you want it, yes. But I don't think you're going to be limited by not having it. Is my view. But AJ has one, so I'll let him elaborate more on his view on that.
So getting the extra education will definitely not hurt you. When it comes to getting hired, employers oftentimes, like I said, and in like Roy, I do manage staff as well, and involved in the hiring process. So that is something we do look at, whether or not you have a master's degree or not. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we will not hire someone that has a bachelor's. But we oftentimes will hire a person with a master's, and it gives you a little bit more additional salary starting out. But once you get hired, whether you have a master's or not, it really doesn't matter. You're going to get the experience with the company, and that really takes the education difference away. So it's really up to you whether you want to get a master's or not. Like Roy said, companies will pay for it. if you want to pursue it after. It may be a little bit difficult, more difficult once you get hired to have a full-time job to go back to school and um, balance full time employment versus schooling. So that's something you have to consider versus continuing on and not getting a full-time job. But like I said, it's really only going to improve your marketability to employers and potentially give you a little bit higher raise than a higher starting salary than those that have a bachelor's.
Okay, and now we're going to put the focus on the student. What do you think you might do upon graduation? Have you given it any thought as to whether or not you were going to pursue the master's after undergrad, or are you going to enter the workforce? What are your plans? Tentative plans.
I think, well, going into my undergrad, I already kind of like freshman year, I already knew I wanted to pursue my master's. Just starting off, and I've gotten different feedback from different people that I'm speaking to about whether or not to, if you need the master's, if you want to go straight in. But I was pretty set starting off, so I think I'm still set in pursuing my master's, especially since we have the co-terminal program. So it's just an extra year done. And speaking with other students with experience of going off on co-op and coming back to school, it's hard to switch between minds sometimes. So going to work and then trying to be a student again might be difficult.
If I could just talk about the PhD as well. Roy and I did not cover that. Um, Once you get your PhD, you're very specialized. So it can be more difficult to um, get hired by a company with a PhD unless you get your PhD, come back and get your PhD after you have experience for working full time. I've seen that happen more often than working all the way through and getting your PhD and then entering the workforce. So that's just something to consider. And again, companies will help pay for schooling. So my recommendation would be there's no need to get your PhD if you want to work in consulting. If you want to go into academia, then yeah, get your PhD. But if you're going to consulting, there's no need for it.
Thanks, guys. I think you really gave us a lot to think about as a student moving through through their career here. Uh, I think we're going to move down to additional advice. We've covered a lot, and you guys have been really great with offering some guidelines on how to get internships and everything else. Do you have any additional advice you'd want to offer students considering an environmental engineering major, or something that might even help them decide that this is the right major for them? Let's start with Karina, if you're okay with it.
I think
Change
one
things up a bit.
advice you can give, especially now that I'm taking a lot more focus classes or concentrated classes on environmental. Like environmental is a very broad, has a lot of little subsections that you get into: air quality, soil, water. Water is a big one. I personally love water. I already know this going into it. So like I was fortunate to have that experience. So it's just a matter of just exploring. Like there's no right answer at this point. It's just a matter of asking a lot of questions. I know I struggle with asking questions, and I've gotten that feedback before. But now it's just kind of I'm trying to be more active in asking questions about how other environmentals pathways. Did they do public agency? Did they do consulting? Did they go straight into doing some like military work, since that's also branch? So it's just asking a bunch of these questions and kind of just hearing everybody's feedback and then getting some experience. Water resource classes, they have an environmental impact um, engineering elective. They have a hazardous waste one. So they have a lot of classes that you can take to kind of explore and see your options. So I just advice is just asking a bunch of questions and just exploring. There's like I said, there's no right answer. Eventually, you'll figure it out whether or not you're like environmental, be kind of doing some civil work because that will probably happen. It just how it ends up. Sometimes you can be in environmental, but end up doing some more chemistry work. It just depends on where your path takes you. So there's no real.
Yeah,
Great,
I agree
thank you.
with that. When I was an undergrad, I actually convinced two of my friends to switch from mechanical engineering to environmental engineering. And one of the things I told them is environmental engineering covers a wide variety of topics. You have some mechanical engineering background in there. You have civil background. You have chemical engineering. You have biology. It covers a wide variety of topics. It's a very interesting um, field to get into, and there's many different pathways you can go. Um, there is remediation sites. Roy and I don't do too much with remediation. I may get involved once in a while, but there's that. There's process engineering for water and wastewater that I do get a little bit involved with. Chemical engineering when it comes to process for treatment plants and industrial treatment plants, I do get involved. And there's water resources where we do conveyance projects for stormwater, wastewater, and water. So it is a very broad engineering discipline, and that's one of the draws that drew me to it.
I think one thing we haven't talked about yet that plays on this here, um, everybody's been right so far. I mean, it's very diverse. There's a lot of ways you can go, but there's a lot of places you can go in environmental engineering as well. So if you don't know where you want to be, if you, let's say you were a mechanical engineer focusing on, you want to be, in the aerospace industry. Well, there's some companies in Connecticut that do jet engines and stuff. There's companies like Boeing's in Washington. There's certain locations you're gonna be, and if you want to be in that field, you're gonna be in those locations. Environmental engineering is everywhere. Every state has consultants. Every state has private companies that need environmental people. Every state has government agencies. Um, so one of the nice parts about environmental engineering is that wherever you want to go, if you start working, say in the Albany area, and 5 years from now, whether you meet a significant other and want to move, whether you decide you're having a family and you want to go back closer to your parents, whatever your reason for wanting to be elsewhere from where you are, there's going to be a job somewhere in that area. It isn't like you have to stay where the big conglomerate is, or you have to stay in a certain area. You can move. And I mean, just looking at, I mean, Arcadis is an example where AJ works. I mean, they're global. I mean, they're around the globe that there's opportunities. And I think that's something we didn't mention. That's a valuable thing to think about because you don't know where you want to be in life, but it's nice to know you'll always have a job. I think that's an important part of this I thought I'd throw out there.
That's a really big part of it because, as Karina mentioned, she's from the West Coast. She might not want to settle in New York after she graduates. That it really does open up the whole world for you in a lot of ways. So thank you for that. Thank you all. Um, my last question is one of my favorites just because it's relevant to first year students. I want you guys to all think about your freshman year in college and what do you know now that you wish you knew? And, what would you offer advice to your freshman self and tell them to do something differently or keep doing? Can you give us some inkling on reflecting here? Come on, Karina, it's not that long ago, so let's start with you.
This is not so much specific to environmental. This is just more of like the college experience. It's just I think the biggest thing for me is especially freshman year, I jumped into it and just went straight to classes. Like I was very committed to getting good grades and would stay up doing homework, but that's basically what I would do and not so much maintain the balance of taking care of myself, making sure that I had free time, balance that out and have fun with friends and have that experience. Since a lot of being a part of our pad, the culture is pretty much like I grind hard, do a lot of work. Sometimes you don't eat so much, sometimes you don't sleep so much, do whatever you have to get the good grade. So like my freshman year, looking back, I'm just like I just wish I would have realized that it's not always just getting the good grades, also making sure that you're happy, you're having fun, getting those experiences in class. That's my piece of advice.
What do you guys think?
I think two things. One, I still to this day have a lot of great friends that I met in the dorms freshman year. And we're still regularly, I mean, I just went camping with one of them this weekend. So getting out of your room, saying hi to people is important, even if they're not environmental engineers or civil or whatever you decide to do. Um, there's a lot of good connections that you'll make that are valuable as a freshman, and I don't think you can shortchange that. The other thing that I'd say, I wish I had met, well, I met him. I wish I had really talked to Dr. Kilduff a lot earlier in my college career. After coming off of my co-op, I sat down with him. He was my advisor 4 years. I know normally the seniors get a different advisor, and I stayed with him. Um, and I said, "Hey, this company wants me an intern part-time. What do you think?" And he did this real fancy spreadsheet. And if you know Dr. Kilduff, he loves his spreadsheets. And he did this whole elaborate thing. And he comes out, he goes, "Well, I figure if you do more than 10 hours, you'll be in trouble. Less than 10 hours, it'll actually make you a better student." And I did 10 hours a week. And those were the best grades I ever had at RPI. And what I really need to do is to focus and get my schedule ironed out. And really, it's not that you can't do a bunch of other things. It's that you have to make sure you're thinking it through, and you just can't do it. You can't be like, all I'm going to do is academics. All I'm going to do is this, or I want to have fun here. You got to actually make your schedule every week so that you can get everything in successfully. And when I learned to do the schedule management, I was a much better student. I was happier. I was enjoying classes more. And unfortunately, it took me a while, till I sat down and had that conversation with him. And that's something I wish as a freshman I sat down and said, I'm struggling a little bit. How do I better focus on what I want? And for as much as I make fun of him for his spreadsheets, he is really good at helping you to focus. And I'd say go see Dr. Kilduff if you are really kind of wondering about environmental engineering or questioning things or anything. I mean, he's a great guy to talk to. No, I don't get paid for the endorsement of Dr. Kilduff. So
I would agree with Roy. Getting to your time management is very important. Something I struggled with the first year. And since I was doing a dual, I was going back and forth for a while whether I was going to do that. And I wish looking back that I chose the path a little bit sooner or changed how some of the courses I took at the same time. So there was one semester that I had, it was a horrible semester, and it was because I put way too many classes that were very difficult in the same semester. So really looking and trying to spread them out a little bit. And like Roy mentioned, talk to your advisor. Dr. Kilvadoff was my advisor as well. I also had a advisor in civil as well, but Dr. Kildoff was great. There was another professor that was RPI that was my advisor for Dr. Kildoff. Fortunately, he's no longer with RPI, but getting to know your advisor, letting them know who you are is very important. It goes a long way for your career.
Thanks, guys, and all true words. Uh, and I'm going to add some advice just because I've been getting a lot of emails about it. Last week was the first IEA exam for our students, and a lot of panicked emails. And I think one of the things that students need to know is that the first test doesn't predict your ability, and and also, I think even big picture, like, employers are not going to be looking at your IEA grade and judging you, and you guys can confirm that, correct? So many students panic in the first semester, rightfully so, just because of what Karina mentioned with the rigor of the programs and just the general academic view at RPI. So breathe and it'll be okay. And talk to your advisor. So that's my advice from your advisor. And guys, I want to thank you so much for being here today. I'm going to turn it over to Kristen for any additional questions if there are any. Otherwise, again, I just feel like our students are going to benefit so much from the information that you shared tonight. So I'm very grateful to have you all with us tonight. So thank you.
Yes, tonight was really, really great. Honestly, I was I was super engaged, and you guys kind of had me giggling a few times on my private end here. Um, we don't have any questions, so I think we're pretty good to call it a night, Karen. I don't know if there was any follow-up that you had, but if not, I want to express my extreme gratitude to our panelists for taking the time to chat with us this evening. You guys always have the most wonderful words of wisdom. And even the simplest sentences that sometimes you say, they have a huge impact on me, and I can't even imagine the impact that they actually will have on our students, who are desperate for this kind of. At this point. So thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight.